All right, man, please. So currently in the news is a story about a young brother named Bakari Henderson. He decided that he was going to take a trip over to an island that is adjacent of Greece called Zakynthos. He ended up hanging out at a club there with his quote-unquote friends, got into an altercation, and the altercation cost him his life. So we're going to watch how they cover this story, and of course I'm going to chime in.
The American man who was beaten to death outside a bar in Greece apparently put his drink on the wrong table. Local media had reported a selfie with a waitress started the fight that killed Bakari Henderson. Well, his friends told CBS this morning that that account is not true. They said the attack began when Henderson and his friends put their drinks down near a group of men at a bar on the Greek island of Zakynthos. Tony DeCopel is here. Tony, good morning.
Good morning. We know how it ended, with a group of men, mostly Serbian men, according to investigators, beating Bakari Henderson outside the bar. But friends back home in Texas say they're not getting the answers they want. Now, some of those who were with Henderson are filling in the details.
Well, the only people who could really fill in the details are the people who were with him. Because as we know, he's the only one who got killed. And in the footage of the incident that we're going to see later, they were nowhere to be found in the footage. So clearly, they did not love him as much as they alleged that they love him. But you know, I'm gonna cover a lot of these different aspects on this clip, man. This is a very unfortunate situation. You know, of course, a lot of other outlets are going to try to use the black man hitting on a white woman angle, and this is why he was killed, so on and so forth. But you know, we're going to go over some of these things because there's definitely certain aspects of the story that I want to talk about. So let's see what they're going to say here.
Never once saw him angry. I never saw him irritated, not even the little slightest bit flustered.
Daniel Brown spoke to CBS this morning before departing Greece without his friend Bakari Henderson.
My new life motto is BLB, which stands for Be Like Bakari. And it's just a reminder to myself to always be humble, pursue my dreams, and just never get upset by the little things in life. You know, like.
Right. Well, your motto is BLB, Be Like Bakari. Well, Bakari's dead right now, and you not. So obviously you would not like him during the altercation because he's the one who got ran down by about 10 dudes. Where was you at? You know, the main thing, brothers, is look, man, and I'm not the type of dude to do all type of hanging out. You know, I see a lot of things. Oh, well, that's what he get for, for taking a selfie with a white woman, or that's what he get for hanging out with white people. Look, I mean, to a degree, that's some of that information is relevant. But the main thing to me is this. When you travel overseas, you have to understand that there is a culture and an atmosphere that you have to understand before you go anywhere. Because there are certain words and phrases and hand gestures that mean one thing to us here in America that means something completely different across seas. There are things going on in Europe and Northern Africa and parts of Turkey right now that if you're not aware of when you get there, certain things could happen. All right. There are certain hand gestures, the thumbs up, the peace sign, that mean one thing to Americans here, and you go abroad and those type of things can get you killed. And you have to understand that when you go to certain clubs in foreign countries, you can't just do the same things that you do here. And the main thing is you always have to understand the environment that you're going into, no matter what race of people that you're hanging out with. Because let's be for real, more niggas get killed at black clubs than they do go into a so-called white club. All right. So before we always want to hit the race angle, and that is relevant because you have to know the type of people that you're hanging out with and the type of people who claim to be your friends. Let's establish that first. More niggas get bodied at so-called black clubs with their so-called black homies than anywhere else. All right. So the main thing is when you go to these different places, you have to understand what the dynamics are.
Like I said, I never saw him once upset about anything. So.
Brown says he was on his way to meet Henderson in the nightlife area of Laganos when the attack happened. According to another friend who was there but didn't want to be identified, Henderson and his friends set their beers on a table in a place called Barcode. That's when two men allegedly grabbed their bottles, broke them, and held them out like weapons, sparking a fight that spilled out into the streets.
They were dealing with those Serbians. This is what I mean when I say you have to know the type of people that you're hanging out with. Right now, Europe has a lot of racial animosity right now because many of those countries in Europe are being heavily invaded by dark Muslims. When I say dark Muslims, I mean so-called Africans from various parts of northern Africa that practice Islam. They're being invaded and taken over by a lot of so-called Arabs that are practicing Islam. And a lot of those people are getting, a lot of the Caucasians in Europe are starting to feel it. They're starting to feel the change in their society, and that's leading to a lot of animosity. Now, this brother here, Bakari Henderson, he could pass for a so-called Eastern African. For the most part, a lot of times, so-called blacks here in America, we tend to look very different from so-called native Africans, but he actually could pass for a so-called East African. He had that look. So you never know what was going through some of those guys' mind. And we already know, even though it's low-hanging fruit, seeing a so-called man of color with a so-called Caucasian woman, that can spark off an issue. But that's why, once again, like I said, you have to understand the environment. Like, you just can't go to a strange island and do shit like you would do at a club in California or, another quote unquote liberal state. You have to really understand what you're doing. You got to really understand your environment, man.
At some point, Henderson became separated from his friends as more than 10 people started beating him.
At some point, Henderson became separated from his friends, quote unquote. In other words, the Serbians concentrated on the nigga while his so-called friends ran away. That's what that really means.
Police have so far arrested and charged 8 men with voluntary manslaughter, including a bar employee and a bouncer. Police say Henderson suffered severe head injuries.
He was always extremely selfless and worried about everyone else.
Well, most so-called blacks that hang out with majority Caucasians are normally the selfless ones. They're normally the ones that act as the group mascot. They're normally the ones who are the most excitable and always smiling, because they have to try to disarm the non-blacks that they're hanging out with. All right, so that's very, very common. If you ever see a so-called black person, male or female, but especially male, and his group or his clique is all non-blacks, he's always the one who's smiling the hardest, because he has to show everybody in the group that he's non-threatening.
Before himself.
Henderson's close friend from Texas, Megan McCrae, agreed.
He was the most compassionate, courageous, genuine friend I had growing up.
McCrae says she's not satisfied with the information she's getting about the death of Henderson, an aspiring entrepreneur who had just graduated college and was working to launch a new clothing line. She says he wasn't the type to get into a bar fight.
It was all really kind of unsettling and hard to swallow, because that wasn't the person we knew Bakari to be. All of my friends and family have been trying to get down to the bottom of why 10 guys were against him.
Y'all haven't been trying to get to the bottom of shit. Look, I'm not saying that you might not be sad about what happened, but y'all ain't trying to get down to the bottom of a damn thing. Like I said, it's obvious what happened. He was in the wrong place. He didn't understand his environment. And, those Serbs was in there. They was looking for drama. They was looking for static. And plus, you got to understand, too, in a lot of these countries, it's obligatory for men to join the military, especially in parts of Southeastern Europe and parts of the Middle East. A lot of those guys are amped up anyway, and it's nothing for them to jump somebody or kill somebody. It's nothing for them. A lot of them have killed people already in the military. So that's what I mean when I say when you go to these foreign countries, you have to understand the atmosphere. And this brother didn't. And that's not to imply at all that he deserved what happened to him. But when you don't know when you don't know the societal dynamics of where you're at, those type of things can happen.
A spokeswoman for Henderson's family says they're still working with the U.S. State Department to bring his body home. They hope that will happen sometime this week. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe page has now raised more than $40,000 to help with those costs. Gail?
Thanks, Tony. The more you hear about the story, the worse it is. I love his friend saying, BLB, be like Bakari.
Yeah, but that shit ain't gonna bring him back. Be like Bakari. Like, I want to know how many so-called friends was he with at the club when he got jumped by 10 guys, and not one of his friends are in the picture trying to pull those guys off of him. All right, so-called friends. That's what. Look, man. I tell y'all, brother, straight up. I roll by myself, man. Cause you know, I got brothers that I love and that, you know, I have love for, but for the most part, I roll by myself because a lot of people ain't shit.
Sounds like he was
Sounds like
right.
a really wonderful get from all sides.
It really does. That's why it's so
Unlikely to be getting in a fight.
Right. More answers to come on that. Very sad. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, many more answers to come, Gail. All right, so now here's the continuation of the report on Bakari Henderson. Let's see what they have to say.
Disturbing surveillance video reveals how the attack that killed an American in Greece began and how it ended. Local media say the footage shows Bakari Henderson running from a group of men. They then throw him down, kick and punch him numerous times.
Now you see, not only the Serbians, but even the so-called bouncer got in on it. Why is that? Because it's a bloodlust to take out these so-called black men. All right? When they get amped up. It's what I mean when I say that the so-called black man is behind enemy lines, and when I say that that's a worldwide issue. All right? It's not just America. It's a worldwide issue. But once again, that's why you must understand your environment. You must understand the potentialities for these bad situations to occur. And you have to think accordingly. It's not his fault what happened to him. I'm not trying to imply that. But, you know, you have to understand that. You got to say, okay, well, what type of people normally hang out in this place? What are the issues that they have? What's going on in the economy in this place? What's going on in the culture of the various people who come out to this island? You know, these are the type of things that you have to understand. You know, instead of people just, oh, man, we're going to get out there. We're going to have some fun. We're going to get some bitches. Yeah, look, man, save that shit for your home territory. You know, you go out to these different countries and these islands. You go out during the daytime. You take some photos and take your ass home. You know, you want to go meet abroad. Go to a nice, calm lounge. You go into these loud technotronic places, man. These people are taking all type of drugs and drinking all type of alcohol. You have white supremacist groups that are populating all throughout Europe right now. You got to understand where you at. And once again, none of his so-called friends, all these be like Bakari, all these be like Bakari motherfuckers, nowhere to be found. Supposedly his homeboy was on his way to the club, the one who was crying. Yeah, okay. I don't know about all that. But, you know, it is what it is. It's all alleged.
It happened outside a bar on the island of Zakynthos. Tony DeCopel is here with new details on how the violence quickly escalated. Tony, really hard to watch this footage.
Indeed. Good morning. The video is now court evidence, and police confirm it's genuine. It shows that fewer than 20 seconds passed between the time the group began pummeling Bakari Henderson and the time they stepped away from his lifeless body. And we're also learning more about what led to this brutal attack from video inside the bar. Security footage shows a man and a woman taking a selfie next to a person Greek media say is Bakari Henderson. Moments later, a man next to Henderson grabs a bottle of beer and makes a smashing motion, setting off a confrontation that escalates when the man hits Henderson on the head. A few seconds later, Henderson hits back. The men then run out of view. Surveillance video from a nearby bar shows Henderson trying to run away before someone throws him against a car. Several others begin to kick and punch him as he collapses in the street. Bystanders try to break up the attack, and someone appears to give Henderson CPR. Greek authorities say Henderson died from severe head injuries. 9 men face voluntary manslaughter charges, including 7 Serbians and 2 workers from the bar. One of those workers, a bouncer, told a local paper he tried to break up the fight.
He wasn't trying to break up shit. All right, he was mad from the start, probably because the dude Henderson probably was just standing there and the women was gravitating towards him. And that happens a lot. Any so-called black man who's traveled into Europe, you know that the Caucasian women will gravitate towards you, especially if you've been to the Netherlands or Germany. Them women are on you like flies on shit. Dead ass. All right. There's nothing that a so-called blonde-haired, blue-eyed European woman wants more than a so-called black man, especially if they find that you're from America. All right. It is what it is.
But that Henderson took an ashtray and threw it at me. He admits he responded by punching him in the face and 2 or 3 times in the body.
So, supposedly the bouncer was trying to help this kid out. And because the kid threw an ashtray at him, he punched him in the face and 2 or 3 times in the body. So this was before, I'm assuming that this is before he got outside and got stomped to death. So people wonder why he was running. He probably was getting jumped in the damn club.
I'd never seen him rattled a day in my life.
Henderson's friend Daniel Brown spoke with CBS News in Greece this week. He was with Henderson on the island of Zakynthos.
He was with him in the club too, running around lying, talking about he was on his way there. How the fuck you on your way there? I thought y'all rolling as a crew. Stop fucking lying. You know, allegedly.
But he says he wasn't at the bar in the party district of Leganas when the fight broke out. He told us Henderson, a recent college graduate who was working to start his own clothing line, was a selfless person who always kept his cool.
He was never really worried about material objects or social status or anything like that, and he was non-judging of everyone he met. And because of that, he easily had the most diverse and large group of friends anyone could ask for.
Yeah, all that can be cool, but that also can be very disarming. It can lead you to be very naive about the various environments that you will have to go into. A lot of times, brothers like this, not to be crass, but sometimes they have to learn things the hard way. All right. Now, the lesson that he learned was far too harsh. But sometimes that's the only way that brothers get that type of message. All right. Did he deserve for that to happen to him? Absolutely not. But when you travel abroad, man, you have to know the environment that you're heading into. All right. If I have to go to Germany tomorrow, if I have to go to Russia tomorrow, if I have to go to Norway tomorrow, I need to know how many so-called white supremacist groups are there. Where are they located? What are the racial demographics there? What is the percentage of racial incidents that go on there? Because I'm here in New York. I know how to flow through everything. I know what to handle. I know how to handle it. All right. It's part of being in a certain environment. I need to know what's going on there so that I don't make a little silly mistake based on me not being from a certain atmosphere and it end up me having to go through a life or death situation that's not really necessary. All right. And look, man, I damn sure I'm not going to no so-called club and no in Europe. There's nothing for me there, but to each their own. It is what it is.
4 suspects appeared in court today for initial testimony. Back in Texas, meanwhile, a spokeswoman for Henderson's family tells us they're planning memorial services for Friday and Saturday. She says they're hoping to have his body back home by then.
Jeez, and that's likely, you think?
It seems like it.
Thank you, Tony.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. But anyway, brothers, like I was saying, man, please look at yourself as an asset. When you look at yourself as an asset, you don't take things for granted. All right. You can't take for granted that your so-called friend is going to have your back. You can't take for granted that the place that you're going to is going to be like the place that you're from. All right. Not even going into the racial aspect, just anywhere. All right. As a so-called black man, if you're from New York, like me, I'm from New York. If I was to go to Chicago, I need to know where to go and where to not go. I need to know what certain signs mean and certain colors mean. I need to understand these things so I don't get caught up in a bullshit situation. All right? When you're dealing with people like Serbians or Croats, these are people who've been going to war with each other for years. A lot of these guys are battle hardened. All right? As soon as you look at them wrong, they're breaking a damn bottle over a glass table. All right? Even if you whoop their ass, is it worth it? These are things that you have to contemplate. You know, every day is a lesson, man. It's just a bad thing to have to learn a lesson like that. But anyway, peace.